Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. In last week's video, I tested the long-standing advice that you should always turn in-body image stabilization off when using a tripod, and the results honestly surprised me, and that video sparked a ton of conversation with hundreds and hundreds of comments, and many of you had some great suggestions for how we can take this test even further, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. So the three most common suggestions that were in the comments section were to rerun this test using 1, a much longer focal length, 2, to push the shutter speeds out to 5, 10, or even 20 seconds long, and the third was to use those eye charts not in the center of the frame, but to rather push them off towards the corners. So in today's video, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna put image stabilization through a tougher, more revealing test to see if the IBIS on a tripod myth actually holds up. And for those that didn't see last week's video, I'll link it above here or there if you want to check that out. But in summary, we're going to perform this test side by side, same settings, same scene, 3 different sensor sizes, a crop sensor camera, a full frame camera, and even a medium format camera, all on a tripod with stabilization on and stabilization off. So if you didn't see that video, or last week's video, these are the cameras. This is the medium format. This is the Fuji GFX 100S. This is the full frame camera we're going to be doing this test on. This is the Nikon Z8, and the crop sensor camera is the Fuji X-T5 that I'm filming this video on right now. So let's just jump right into the results right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the biggest sensor first, then we're going to go to the full frame, the Nikon Z8, and then we'll wrap things up with the smallest sensor, which is the crop sensor Fuji X-T5. So this right here, as you can see, this is the Fuji GFX 100S, this camera right here. We are at 64 millimeters. Let's see what happens here. As you can see, 2.5 seconds at f11, ISO 100. All of the settings are exactly the same. This image on the left is the one with the in-body image stabilization off. Image on the right is IBIS turned on. Let's zoom in here. So this is no IBIS. This is with IBIS. And once again, we are kind of picking up right where we left last week. I don't see any difference at all right here, but I have reviewed these results prior to me filming this video, and there are some differences from this scenario, this testing, versus last week, so it's definitely interesting. But at 2.5 seconds, there is no difference at all right here. So let's go over here to a longer focal length. So let's put this here. So this image on the left, once again, is no IBIS. This image on the right is with IBIS on. And now we are at 5-second exposure. So we're starting to get a little bit longer here. So let me zoom in here with no IBIS, as you would expect it to be tack sharp, and with IBIS, and here we go. Now we're starting to see a little bit, actually a big difference here. And these results are so vastly different. I was a little concerned that there was something that caused, there was nothing that bumped the tripods or anything. There was nothing even near these tripods. I was using a very sturdy tripod, my Really Right Stuff tripod. I was also using a 10-second shutter delay to try and give these longer lenses even more time to settle after I hit that shutter button. But as we compare these at 5 seconds, there is a big difference. Once again, this is with IBIS on and this is with IBIS off. So I went even further. So let's go over here, put this one here and this one here. Now this is at 10 seconds. So this is a pretty long exposure. So let me zoom in here, no IBIS and with IBIS. And look at that, it's even worse now. Now this is with the IBIS on. And I started thinking about this. So I was thinking, you know what, Mark? If there was something that, a little bit of wind, even though there was no wind at all, this was a very calm evening that I did this, even if there was anything that caused the camera to move at all, that IBIS, in theory, should have counteracted it. But I'm telling you, there was literally nothing moving. The camera was absolutely rock solid in both of these exposures. And this is with no IBIS on here on the left, and this is with IBIS on the right. Now, if 10 seconds wasn't even long enough, I ended up taking it to 20 seconds. Now, I have not shot a 20-second exposure in quite a few years. It's not something I normally do. But it was a common suggestion in the comment section in last week's video, and I did think it would be pretty interesting. So I do have those results here. So let's put this one right here, and let's put this one right here. So this image on the left is no IBIS, and this image on the right is with IBIS. And interesting enough, it doesn't look, it's definitely out of focus. It's not nearly as in focus as the image that has no IBIS on, but it is a little bit hazy. It's not nearly as tight and crisp as the image that has the IBIS turned on. So I found that to be incredibly interesting right there. Now let's move over to the Nikon Z8, which is a full frame camera. So let me come up here, put this image here. Let's put this image right here. And for anyone who didn't see last week's video, if you're wondering what I'm photographing here, this is the fire pit in my backyard. And I just printed out these eye charts and I put them on the back of one of the chairs surrounding the fire pit to give us something with the very defined edges to see in order to zoom in to more easily see if it's in focus or out of focus. It's a lot easier to look at an eye chart versus bark on a tree or a rock or something like that. So this image on the left is without IBIS, and this image on the right is with IBIS. This is the Nikon at 120 millimeters, so we're substantially longer now at 2.5 seconds. So zoom in here, absolutely the same. I don't see any difference at all here. So let's push it out to 5 seconds now. So let me zoom out again, and we're gonna put this image here and this image here. Now we are at 5 seconds. Once again, we are at 120 millimeters. And now we have the eye chart in kind of more of the bottom right-hand corner. So let's zoom in over here and see. I really don't see any difference here either. You know, and I'm really pixel peeping here, trying to see any kind of a difference, and I really don't see anything at all. So I think that's exactly the same as well. Let's take it a step further and go to 10 seconds. Once again, a 10-second exposure at 120 millimeters. So this image here is without IBIS. This image here is with IBIS. So let's zoom in here. Now that, as you can see, the eye chart is in the upper left-hand corner. And once again, I feel like the Nikon Z8 is holding up very well. Once again, the image on the left has no IBIS turned on. The image on the right has IBIS turned on. So no change there at all. Now let's take it to 20 seconds. And I really started to think it, because if you think about this, at 20 seconds, when you're using a longer focal length, it's sometimes hard to get a crisp exposure no matter what the circumstances are. So I was pretty curious to see exactly how this would turn out. So let's put this one here. This is no IBIS. And then this is with IBIS at 20-second exposure at 120 millimeters. And once again, I don't see any difference in all between these two images whatsoever. These look exactly the same. So in my opinion, the Nikon Z8 did very well. This is my main camera. And I think for this scenario, I don't think I'm gonna be too concerned about what focal length I'm using or how long my shutter speed is as to whether or not I leave IBIS on when I'm using a tripod or I leave it off. I don't think it's gonna make much of a difference at all because I have done extensive testing now on the Z8 and there has been no comparable or no at least perceived differences in the images with the IBIS on and with IBIS off when using a tripod. Now the crop sensor camera that I'm filming on right now, the Fuji X-T5, these results are pretty interesting here. So let's go over here. Let's put this image up here and this image up here. So as you can see, this is at 121 millimeters. Now let's zoom in here. And that looks pretty tack sharp right there. Very much the same. Now, now an interesting note here is this lens is the 55 to 200 millimeters, and it has the optical image stabilization slider, or I should say switch on the lens, and that's how you control stabilization. So when you use this lens and you turn optical image stabilization on, that turns off in-body image stabilization, and it just relies on the actual lens itself to stabilize the image. But I don't see any difference right here at all, so that looks good. Let's do another version here at 5 seconds, right there, and you can already see a difference. Look at this. So let me zoom in here, and here at 5 seconds at 100 millimeters now. Look at the difference there. Absolutely horrific. This is actually one of the worst comparisons out of all of these right here. I mean, this right here, obviously, with no IBIS turned on at all, is tack sharp. This is with IBIS on, and that looks very bad. So that was interesting. Now, of course, let's extend it out to 10 seconds. So let's put this one right here, and then this one right here. And let's zoom in at 10 seconds at 110 millimeters. Not as bad, but this one, of course, with no IBIS is tack sharp, which is what we would always expect. But this one with the IBIS turned on is definitely softer. Nothing like the 5 second version, but it is softer. Now let's see what happens at 20 seconds here. So let's put the image one here, and then the last one right here. And let's zoom in. No IBIS, tack sharp as expected. And with IBIS, it is definitely soft. At 20 seconds at 110 millimeters, there is no question that having the IBIS on is definitely a detriment in this scenario right here. But I found that to be very interesting. The Nikon Z8 was the clear winner out of both of these videos Whether I was shooting wide to mid to much longer, the Nikon Z8, whether I had IBIS on a tripod, IBIS off on a tripod, the results were always absolutely identical, which makes me feel good because this is my main camera and I absolutely love it. The Fuji GFX 100S in last week's video performed phenomenal, no issues at all. But when you started to use longer focal lengths and you started to really drag that shutter speed out, you could see that there was issues. So I definitely would if you have the Fuji GFX 100S, I would encourage you to make sure you have IBIS turned off when you're using a tripod because you do not want to have soft photos when you get home. And on the Fuji GFX, or I'm sorry, the Fuji X-T5, last week's video, when we were shooting wider, performed flawlessly, no issues at all. When we put on the longer lens that had the optical image stabilization on, then it really started to fall apart. So definitely food for thought. Obviously, these are just 3 cameras. There's a gajillion cameras out there. So if the cameras that you own are not one of these 3 and you want to try it out at home, I would definitely encourage you to do the same kind of test at home. It's very simple to do and the results are pretty interesting. Now, before I do wrap things up here, I just want to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace offers a stunning user-friendly platform to build your website. With their Blueprint AI design system, you can showcase your photography and create a standout online presence with ease. Plus, built-in Squarespace SEO tools help your site appear in more searches, making it easier for the right customers to find you. And if you're looking to sell online, Squarespace's online store feature provides everything you need to sell your physical goods, digital content, or services seamlessly. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. If you have any questions about anything covered in this week's video, please leave those in the comments section below and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And if you have any other suggestions of ways we can take this test even further that no one has mentioned already, please leave those in the comments section as well. It'd definitely be interesting to see. And if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today. And I will see you all next Wednesday.